Welcome to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. No politics, no drama, no arguing. Just two guys talking sports. I'm your host, JJ Peters. Today on the pod, we will talk about Week 17 NFL predictions, some NBA scores, preview of New Year's bowl games, and more. But before we dive into those topics, we have a poll question, and you can vote on Instagram and Facebook at SportsTown_podcast or on Twitter at SportsTown Pod. And the question was, who is the best team in the NL right now, the Padres or the Dodgers? And currently, the Padres are the team to beat right now, according to what you guys think. Again, thanks for voting. You can vote on Instagram and Facebook at SportsTown_podcast or on Twitter at SportsTownPod. Now let's get a sports update. The Buffalo Bills will be allowing fans. The state of New York is allowing it. It'll be the Bills' first home playoff game since 1995. The state will allow about 6,700 fans to next week's playoff game. However, fans must test negative for COVID-19, follow social distancing protocols, wear masks, no tailgating, and contact tracing after the game. Fans must get a COVID test from the Buffalo Bills at $63 and must pay for a parking ticket that's an additional $11. Kawhi Leonard is back. After missing 2 games because of getting hit in the mouth in a win versus the Nuggets on Christmas Day, Leonard has had to have stitches in his mouth. The 2-time Finals MVP will need to wear a face mask until the stitches are removed. The former San Diego State product had 28 points, 7 assists, and 4 boards. The Clippers are now 4-1 after beating the Trailblazers 128-105. Sam Cook of the Baltimore Ravens could end his 239 games played streak. Cook had an inconclusive COVID-19 test that could sideline him for Sunday's game versus the Bengals. The Ravens punter had the most consecutive games played for the Ravens at 239. He surpassed Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs. Baltimore will likely need a new punter or have Justin Tucker do the duties as well. Tucker kicked and punted both at Texas. The 2019 AFC champs play the Bengals this week and clinch a playoff berth with a win or a Colts loss. Cook also holds for JT while kicking field goals and extra points. Interesting fact, tight end Mark Andrews did some holding in training camp and could be doing it for Tucker if Cook can't play on Sunday. Miami quarterback D.R. King suffered a torn ACL in a loss versus Oklahoma State in the Cheez-It Bowl. By the way, it's the cheesiest bowl of all. King will require surgery and could be back by August for the Hurricanes training camp. Before the game on Tuesday, he announced he would return next season. He finished the season with 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 4 rushing touchdowns, 2,685 yards passing, and 538 yards on the ground. King transferred from Houston to Miami last year. The Hurricanes finished 8-3 and third in the ACC this year. Dalvin Cook will miss Week 17's game versus the Lions. Dalvin Cook's father passed away unexpectedly at the age of 46. On Tuesday, the second leading rusher in the NFL right now fled home to Miami and will not have enough time to clear COVID protocols to play on Sunday. Dalvin's brother, James Cook, plays for Georgia, also flew home to Miami and will miss the Peach Bowl on Friday. Dalvin Cook is only trailing Derrick Henry for the most rushing yards in 2020. He has 312 carries for 1,557 yards and 16 touchdowns. Dalvin Cook made a second straight Pro Bowl this season despite the event not being played because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Vikings are currently 6-9 and are officially being eliminated from playoff contention after losing to the Saints on Christmas Day. The report was first reported by NFL's Network's Tom Pelissero. Bad news for Fins fans. Veteran quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick will not be able to play in the season finale against the Bills. Fitzmagic had tested positive for coronavirus. The quarterback from Harvard has been a backup most of the season, but has came in a plethora of times late in the game to win. With him being out, the Dolphins have signed Jake Rudock to be Tagovailoa's backup. Brian Flores, the head coach of the Dolphins, described Fitzpatrick as a reliever or closer to the rookie quarterback. The veteran quarterback has came in for Tua and won the game for Miami last week. The Dolphins also need a win on Sunday against the Bills to officially clinch a playoff berth, or Ravens, Browns, or Colts lose. The Bills haven't already clinched the AFC East, so we'll see if they play much of their starters. Fitzpatrick has never played in the playoffs in his career, and if the Dolphins do so, he'll be ready for this game, for the game next Sunday, but without practice. And finally, Becky Hammon of the San Antonio Spurs became the first woman in NBA history to be a head coach in a single game. Popovich was ejected in a loss versus the Lakers on Wednesday night and gave the responsibilities to Hammon. San Antonio lost 121 to 107. She played 14 seasons in the WNBA and was a six-time All-Star. Hammon played for the Liberty and Stars. She joined the Spurs staff in 2014 as a full-time assistant. The former WNBA All-Star interviewed with some NBA teams last year for head coaching positions. The Spurs are currently 2-2. Now let's get to some NBA scores. As you know, the season is in full swing. Here are some games on Wednesday. It's hard to believe that the NBA is already close to its third week this year. There is some big news in the NBA right now. The league is requiring players to wear a device that censors alerts if a player is not 6 feet away from another individual or when someone is not wearing it. It will not be used when playing or working out. Spurs versus the Lakers. The Lakers held on to beat the Spurs 121 to 107. The big story was Greg Popovich being ejected and Becky Hammon filling in for Pop. She became the first female coach in NBA history to be the head coach in a single game. LeBron James had 26 points, 8 assists, and Montrezl Harrell had 9 boards. DeJounte Murray had 29 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists to lead all major stats for the Spurs in the game versus the Lakers. The Hornets took on the Mavericks. Charlotte got their second win of the season after upsetting the Mavs 118 to 99. The rookie LaMelo Ball finished with 22 points, 5 dimes, and Miles Bridges had 16 boards. For Dallas, Tim Hardaway Jr. had 18 points, Max Kleber 6 rebounds, and Luka Doncic finished with 5 assists. Bucks versus the Heat. Miami upsets Milwaukee 119 to 108. The Bucks have now started a sluggish 2-3 and have not looked sharp. Dragic had 26 points, Tyler Hero dropped 15 boards, and Bam Adebayo finished with 10 dimes. Giannis led the way in every stat category for the Bucks with 26 points, 13 rebounds, and 10 assists. Hawks versus Nets. The Nets squeezed by the young Atlanta Hawks 145 to 141 on Wednesday night. Brooklyn is now 3-2 and with the win over Atlanta. It was the Hawks' first loss of the season. Kevin Durant had 33 points, 8 dimes, and Jared Allen had 13 boards. John Collins dropped 30 points. Trae Young had 11 dimes, and Clint Capella had 12 rebounds. Grizzlies versus Celtics. It's not looking good for the Grizzlies without reigning Rookie of the Year Ja Morant. Memphis fell to Boston 126 to 107 and have dropped to 1-3 so far. Boston is 3-2 after the dub. Jaylen Brown had a career high with the Celtics as he dropped 42 points, 4 assists, and Robert Williams had 10 rebounds. Jonas Valanciunas led the way with 20 points for the Grizzlies, 11 boards, and Kyle Anderson had 10 assists. Trailblazers versus the Clippers. Kawhi was back and with a mask. He dropped 28 points in the win versus the Trailblazers, 128 to 105. After missing 2 games, he also had 7 assists. PG had 10 boards in the win versus Portland. For the Blazers, CJ McCollum had 25 points, 10 rebounds, and Damian Lillard had 4 assists. Let's switch gears to college football. Bowl season is just getting heated up. New Year's Day is today, which means there will be a lot of premier bowl games on that include the college football playoff. Here are all the bowl games so far, and I will give you a preview of the top games in 2021. Oklahoma State and Miami. Oklahoma State, who was ranked 21st, took on the 18th ranked Hurricanes of Miami University. The Cheez-It Bowl was played on Tuesday, December 29th. After the Cowboys held on to beat the Hurricanes 37-34 after almost blowing a 21-0 lead. Sam Saunders was 27 of 40 for 305 yards and 4 TD passes. He also led the team in rushing with 45 yards on 14 carries. Brandon Presley had 118 yards receiving, 6 receptions, and 3 touchdowns. For Miami, Nick Perry filled in for the injured King. He threw for 228 yards, 19 of 34 passing, and 2 touchdown passes. Cameron Harris rushed for 52 yards on 6 attempts. Brevin Jordan had 5 receptions for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. Texas versus Colorado. Next we get to the Alamo Bowl, where the 20th ranked Texas Longhorns took on the Colorado Buffalo. The Longhorns jumped out to a huge lead and never looked back. The Longhorns defeated the Buffalo 55-23. Casey Thompson was 8 of 10 for 170 yards and 4 TD passes. Robinson rushed for 183 yards on 10 carries and 1 touchdown. Joshua Moore had 5 receptions for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. For Buffalo, Sam Neuer was 8 of 23 for 101 yards and 2 picks. Jarek Broussard rushed for 82 yards and 27 carries and 2 touchdowns. Dimitri Stanley had 4 catches for 86 yards. The Wisconsin Badgers took on the Wake Forest Demon Deacons in the Duke's Mayo Bowl. The Badgers trailed 14-0 early, but had 28 unanswered points thanks to 4 interceptions by quarterback Sam Herman, all in the second half. Wisconsin defeated Wake Forest 28-14. Graham Mertz finished the game throwing for 130 yards on 11 completions and 1 TD. Garrett Grushek rushed for 41 yards on 13 carries and 1 touchdown. Jack Dunn for Wisconsin had 60 yards receiving and 6 catches. Sam Hartman for the Demon Deacons threw for 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, but 4 costly interceptions. Christian Beal Smith had 82 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown, and Roberson had 8 receptions, 131 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The funny part about the whole game was Wisconsin accidentally broke the trophy after celebrating too hard. The Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic was played on Wednesday, December 30th on New Year's Eve. The 6th-ranked Sooners, the Big 12 champions, took on the 7th-ranked and runners-up in the SEC and the big, overwhelming favorite, the Florida Gators. To everybody's surprise, Oklahoma blew out the Gators. The final score was 55-20. It was a good old-fashioned butt-whooping. Oklahoma dominated and showed that the SEC might not be as good as we think it is. Spencer Rattler was 14 of 23, 247 yards, and 3 TD passes. Stevenson rushed for 186 yards on 18 attempts and 1 TD. Seth McGowan had 70 yards receiving. NFL hopeful Kyle Trask threw for 158 yards, 16 of 28, but threw 3 interceptions. Emory Jones rushed for 60 yards and added 1 touchdown. Trent Whitmore had 47 yards receiving. The next bowl game we will discuss is the Armed Forces Bowl. Mississippi State took on the 24th-ranked Tulsa Golden Hurricane. Tulsa was the big favorite to win after having a heartbreaking loss to Cincinnati in the AAC Championship game, or the American Athletic Conference Championship. The Bulldogs never trailed in the game and held on to beat the 24th-ranked Golden Hurricane 28-26. By the way, Mississippi State had a losing record and still was able to get to a bowl game. Crazy. Will Rogers for Mississippi State was 19 of 30, 148 yards, and 1 TD pass. Marks rushed for 72 yards and added 1 TD. Austin Williams had 3 catches for 42 yards. On the other side, for Tulsa, Zach Smith threw for 347 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Corey Taylor II rushed for 85 yards and 1 touchdown. And Keelan Strokes, 9 receptions, 117 yards, and 1 TD. But the big story of the game was the fight that happened after the contest was over. Both benches cleared, and the fight went over for well over 10 minutes. Last but not least, it's the Cover Pad Arizona Bowl. Play between the Ball State Cardinals, 22nd ranked, took on Ball State, took on the 22nd ranked San Jose State Spartans. The Cardinals were representing the MAC, and the San Jose State Trojans were representing the Mountain West. The Cards jumped out to a lead and never looked back. Ball State flew past the Spartans 34-13. The game started off with a 73-yard pick six by Antonio Phillips. For the Cards, Drew Pitt threw for 217 yards and 1 TD. Willie Jones had 89 yards on the ground, and Johannes Taylor, had 4 receptions for 103 yards and 1 TD. On the Spartan side, Nick Starkel threw for 268 yards, 1 TD, but 3 bad interceptions. Tyler Nevins rushed for 37 yards, and Trey Walker had 81 yards receiving. Now let's get to the preview of the New Year's Bowls. First, we got Georgia and Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl. It's not prediction, so I'm just giving you a preview of it. Cincinnati won the American Athletic Conference Championship and was 11-0 and ranked 9th. Georgia, on the other hand, is ranked 8th and finished 3rd in the SEC. Unfortunately, they were not able to get to the championship game and take on Alabama, who they really wanted to face. This is going to be a great game, and I can't wait to watch this one. AAC, can they get the upset, or the SEC continue to prove they are the better team and they are a much complete team? Or will the committee be wrong and will Cincinnati blow them out, and will Cincinnati crown themselves as champions like what UCF did a few years ago when they beat Auburn, who, by the way, that year Auburn also beat Alabama, who ended up winning the national championship. The Citrus Bowl between Auburn and Northwestern. Auburn no longer has a coach. Gus Malzahn was fired, and Northwestern shocked a lot of people and took Ohio State all the way in the Big Ten championship game. This will be very good between SEC and Big Ten, a classic showdown. Who gets the win? Well, we'll find out. We'll find out in the Citrus Bowl. Those are always great bowl games, and I can't wait to watch it. Who wins, the blue or the purple? Notre Dame versus Alabama, the main event, the Rose Bowl. Notre Dame looked so good until getting blown out by Clemson in the ACC championship game. What can they do? Well, they're taking on one of the best teams in college football. Though right now, it's probably going to be Devontae Smith winning the Heisman and Mac Jones finishing second. The coincidence? They both play for Alabama. This game could be a slaughter, but again, we don't know. Did the Crimson Tide get to their another championship game, or will Notre Dame shock us and play unlike what they did a few years ago in the Peach Bowl against Clemson in the college football playoff semifinals? We'll find out. Clemson versus Ohio State, the ACC champions versus the Big Ten champions. Currently, Clemson is 2-0 versus Ohio State in the college football playoff semifinals. Last year, Ohio State had a big lead, but unfortunately lost to Clemson, and Clemson ended up going to the championship game where they were defeated by LSU. Does Clemson get another national championship? Does Trevor Lawrence prove he is the best college football player ever to never win a Heisman? Or will Ohio State get the win and finally get to the college football playoff championship? We'll see. Clemson, Ohio State. What a classic that will be. Can't believe it, but we're already in divisional week in the NFL. The last week of the 2020/2021 regular season. It's just crazy how the year has gone by so quickly. Let's get into all the preview of the big games. Now, remember, all of these games will be playoff implication. So if your team is not in the playoffs or not playing a team that is in the postseason or has a chance, they will not be included. So let's get into it. Steelers versus Browns. This game should be a win for the Browns. The Steelers don't have Ben Roethlisberger playing, and there's been multiple rumors that half their starters won't be playing. So Mason Rudolph going to get the start. There's been some Steeler players they don't know yet. There's been reports that Mike Tomlin hasn't told anybody else who's not playing, and they've just been using their starters. But the Browns need this to officially clinch a playoff berth, or they would have to have a few teams lose. This is a big game for the Browns. And we're also going to see Myles Garrett versus Mason Rudolph part 2. Are there more helmets flying? We'll see. But this is a must-win for the Browns. Steelers are likely not going to be trying because they're to win the AFC North. They're not going to get the top seed. This is the Browns got to win. Or will the Browns lose and all the fears from the fans will come true? We'll see what happens, but the Browns should win this game. My prediction, Browns win this one 31-17. Bills versus Dolphins. A game similar to the Steelers and the Browns. This must be a win for the Dolphins. Yes, you don't have Ryan Fitzpatrick, but you got to get the job done. I don't think Josh Allen is going to play. Sean McDermott has kind of not really said much about if he's going to play a starter. I wouldn't see or not. They're likely already clinched the number 2 seed. They're going to likely play. Well, they'd play the Dolphins again if the Dolphins win. So the Dolphins got to get this win, or just have the Colts or one of the other teams like the Ravens and Browns lose, and even the Titans would be huge for them. But the Dolphins got to get the job done because I doubt the Bills play much of their stars. Actually, the Dolphins do win this game, but I think it's closer than we think. I'm going to go ahead and say the Dolphins win 26-19. Ravens versus Bengals. Again, the Ravens are going to need to have all their stars play because if they win, they're officially in the playoffs. They basically control their own destiny. The Bengals have won the last 2 games, so the Bengals are going to be a tough out. The Ravens need to get the job done right away. They can't let the Bengals into the football game. The Steelers did that a few weeks ago. Not a good choice. The Ravens got to win this. Now, if we go deja vu, a few years ago, the Ravens had a chance to make the playoffs, but they lost the last week of the season to the Bengals at home, and the Bills made it instead of them. So let's not have that happen to the Ravens. The Ravens got to get the job done. So the Ravens got to get this done. They need a win. But they play the Steelers right now, which would be a great game in the playoffs. But the Ravens have been hot the last few weeks, but let's keep it going. This could be a trap game for the Ravens. My opinion, the Ravens win this game 37-16. Cowboys versus the Giants. Again, whoever wins this game has to have the Washington football team lose, because that would put basically if the Cowboys or Giants win and the Washington football team loses, they would clinch the division. One of the 2 teams that wins this game, unless they tie, then the Washington football team officially clinch. The Eagles are officially out of it, but the Cowboys and Giants, they just need to win. And I say the Cowboys get the win, especially if Mike McCarthy starts smashing watermelons or has the players do it for him. They're 2-0 when it happens. So if you're the Cowboys right now, if you're a Cowboys fan, you definitely wanted them to be smashing watermelons. I think the Cowboys win this game. I'm gonna say it's a close game. I had a prediction, but now I can't remember. I said the Cowboys win this one 27-21, and they just would have to wait for the Washington football team, but I think the Cowboys get the job done. Falcons versus the Buccaneers. And the Falcons are out of the playoffs. They are done. They're 4-11. They played well with some teams, like they almost beat the Chiefs last week. Couldn't get it done. They missed a field goal. They had a chance to pick off Patrick Mahomes in the end zone. Didn't happen. So it's been a lost season for the Falcons. They're going to have to find a new coach. They're going to find a new GM. That whole team is different. But the Buccaneers have already clinched the division, but they want to get in a better spot. So in my opinion, the Buccaneers get the job done. Tom Brady throws 4 or 5 touchdown passes, similar to what he did in Detroit. They win this one 42-24. Tom Brady is a beast in this game, and the Falcons clinch the number 4th pick in the draft and definitely need a defense. So final score, Buccaneers 42, the Falcons 24. Packers versus Bears. It sounds strange, but I know the Bears are in the playoffs. Despite all the problems with Matt Nagy, Mitchell Trubisky, the defense not trying at all because they're tired of their having to do all the work in the offense doing nothing. Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky, well, they're probably going to go back one more year if the Bears win this game and make the playoffs, because right now they are, or the Cardinals and Rams lose, one of those two teams loses, or they just tie and the Bears officially clinch. So, well, no, they wouldn't clinch because the Bears would need to win. But basically, the Bears win or the Cardinals and Rams lose, the Bears are in the playoffs. But the Packers, 12-3, strangely enough, they beat the Saints, but they haven't clinched the top spot yet. They already clinched the NFC North for the 2nd straight year and the 7th time in 10 years. But the Packers need to win this game if they clinch the 1 seed. I don't think the Bears are making the playoffs. I think the Packers get the job done. I don't think it's really that close. I think the Packers win 35-17. Rodgers throws 3 or 4 touchdown passes. Packers officially clinch the top seed in the NFC. Jags versus the Colts. Now, it sounds so strange, but the Colts at 10-5 could miss the playoffs, or could go 11-5 and miss the playoffs. The last team that go 11-5 and miss the postseason has to go back to the 2008 Patriots when Tom Brady was out. Matt Castle filled in for him, did a heck of a job, but they couldn't get it done. Couldn't get it done, and we're just, I think, a game out of the playoffs or even half a game. This is the Jags. They've already clinched the number 1 pick, so the Jags will probably be trying really hard. But that team is just not good at all. Just to say something nice, that Jags team is not good at all. I mean, it's hard to find something nice about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Doug Marone's not going to be there next year. He shouldn't be. They already fired their GM. That team's going to look totally different. They're going to have Trevor Lawrence, likely. But I think the Colts get the job done. This shouldn't be close at all. I can't remember what I had the prediction on my I can't remember. I had the prediction earlier, but I can't remember what the score was. But I'm saying the Colts win this game 37-14. Colts go 11-5 and are hoping that someone loses for them to get back into the playoffs, but it doesn't look very bright right now. Chiefs versus Chargers. Yes, this doesn't seem like it's too much, but it does have playoff implication because, well, technically it does because the Chiefs are in the playoffs right now. They've already clinched the top spot in the AFC, so I doubt any of their starters play. I haven't heard any word yet out if Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill will play or half their defense. But it looks like they probably won or at least just in the first half. The Chargers are 6-9. The Chargers are looking pretty good. Why not just end the season well? Justin Herbert going to throw a few touchdown passes. He's already solidified himself as the AFC offense or as the offensive rookie of the year. I think he could even be a top 10 quarterback. I don't think that'd be a stretch at all. He's a very good quarterback. Even though the Chargers have blown so much leads, I think this guy is so good. He only had 1 or 2 bad games all this year. In his first start ever, he went up against the Chiefs and almost beat him. That's pretty good until Harrison Butker made 3 straight field goals, which was crazy, over 50 yards. But I think the Chargers get it done, especially if half the Chiefs players are out. I think the final score 34-24 Chargers win. Rams versus Cardinals. Now, this is an interesting game as well because both teams, if they lose, they could be out, and likely both teams are not going to be without their quarterback, or going to be without their quarterback. The Rams officially, Jared Goff not playing. It's going to be John Wolford from the AAF, and he led the league in touchdowns until he was disbanded for the Arizona Hotshots. They also re-signed Blake Bortles. That will be interesting because they signed Blake Bortles because he was Jared Goff's backup last year. We'll see. Kyler Murray is still not sure if he's going to play this week. I can't remember the backcourt for the Cardinals, but the Cardinals need Kyler Murray because if they don't, there's a chance to miss the playoffs, but I still think the Bears end up losing. But if the Bears lose and the Cardinals lose, And then the Bears are in the playoffs despite having an 8-8 average record. They'll probably get killed by the Saints and the Seahawks. But this game, so hard to say. But if Kyler Murray plays, and I think he has, the Cardinals get the job done. They win this by a very low score. 17. I had the score and I can't remember it now, but I think the Cardinals win this game 16-13 over the Rams. Cardinals clinch a playoff berth, and so do the Rams despite the loss. 49ers and Seahawks, and the Niners have nothing to play for. George Kittle is back. I think CJ Beathard has proved that he's the backup quarterback over Nick Mullins. But the problem is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be with the Niners next year? I don't think he's going to be, but we'll see what happens. The Seahawks still have a chance to clinch the number 1 seed, but if the Packers end up winning, which I think they will, then they'll probably be fighting for the number 2 or 3 seed. And right now I see the Seahawks beating the Niners, but in a close one, 20-17. Russell Wilson has a few mistakes, but he comes up and plays well right at the end, like what Russ does. Let him cook. He'll do that in the last drive. The Seahawks will win the game. They'll officially clinch the number 2 seed because the next game is the Saints versus Panthers, and I think the Panthers upset the Saints. Now, you remember, I know this is a very bold prediction, but remember 2 months ago, the Panthers went into New Orleans and almost beat them. Joey Saleh almost made a 65-yard field goal to force overtime. Didn't happen, but I like the Panthers' chances a lot. I said it's going to be a high-scoring game. I said 44-41 earlier, but I don't think it's going to be that high-scoring. I'm going to say the Panthers win this game 34-31. Teddy Bridgewater knows if the Panthers have a top 5 or top 8 pick or top 10, they're likely going to – there's reports that they're going to take a quarterback. Why not just beat them here, get out of a top 10 pick or have a late one so they don't have a chance to get a quarterback and they have to keep Bridgewater one more year, which I think that's what the Panthers want to do. They should do that. They owe it to him because, again, Christian McCaffrey only played 3 games this year. Half the receivers were out. Ian Thomas was not impressive as the tight end. The defense couldn't stop anybody. The defensive line is very good, but it's very young. But I think the Panthers take this win. It's a bold prediction, but I think they win 34-31. Titans versus the Texans. Titans win, they're in. Or if they lose, then they go 10-6. They still would make the playoffs, but they wouldn't win the AFC South. I think they would have the 7th seed if the Ravens and the Browns and the Dolphins win. Or actually, I'm trying to think here. I'm not exactly sure how that wins if they lose and all the teams win, including the Colts. The Titans might be out of a playoff. Yeah, they would be out of the playoffs because every team would go 11-5. That's crazy. And then the Colts would win the division. But the Titans need to win. They're in. They officially clinch the AFC South if they win. But they're playing against the Texans, which the Texans just got beat by the Bengals, so you know that's not great. Titans got to get the win, and I think they do. They officially clinch the AFC South. And they also finally, for the first time in, 4 years, they're no longer 9-7. They're 11-5, or right now they're 10-5, but I think they get the win. I think it's going to be somewhat of a high-scoring game, but I think the Titans win 35-24 over the Texans. Tennessee gets the job done. Derrick Henry rushing for over 100 yards, and for the second consecutive year, wins the rushing title. Actually, it'd be the second straight year. He's the first player to do it since LT did it back in 2006 and 2007, as someone running for the rushing title for 2 straight years. And the last game, Washington football team versus the Eagles. The Washington football team have been through a lot this year. Somehow are in the chance to win a playoff game, but they're starting, if Alex Smith isn't back, practice squad quarterback Tyler Heineke. Because Dwayne Haskins was cut, they're going to go with Tyler Heineke if Alex Smith is not good, which doesn't look too promising if you're the football team. The Eagles are just trying to play spoiler here. It's a Sunday night football game. Jalen Hurts, his 4th start. He's looked pretty impressive in his first 3. He's 1-2 as a starting quarterback. Again, I got another bold prediction. I think the Eagles get the job done. 34-20. Yes, that means the Cowboys, if they end up beating the Giants, they are the division title champions. It's crazy. The Cowboys, if they did get to make the playoffs, they'd be 6-10. They'd be the worst team to ever make it. But remember, teams with losing records, the 7-9 Seahawks in 2010 and the 7-8-1 Panthers in 2015, they're 2-0 altogether. It's going to be 3-0. But yes, the Eagles get the job done. 34-20. Tyler Heineke's not ready for prime time, and Jalen Hurts gets his second start. It's a great way to end the season at 2-2. Again, it's a bold prediction, but I think I think the Eagles get the job done, beating the Washington football team 34-20. Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and much more. We release new episodes every Wednesday and Friday. Also, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Sports Town Podcast. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.